Hey everybody, this one is called Martial Law Equals Corruption. All of this corruption you're seeing nowadays, it's because of the martial law. And the stuff that Trump is having to deal with, the stuff that Obama was doing, it's all because of the martial law. And that's what this video is about. First of all, I'm not a liar. You should never take my word for anything. You should always do your own research. I have provided references to aid you in your research, and I don't know everything. I'm open to ideas. There's four types of people you'll meet in your life. There's the people who try to wake up the slaves. There's the slave masters. There's the people who have no idea they're slaves. And there's the people who like being slaves. Which one are you? Do you really know for sure? Are you who you think you are? Now, I am recording this a little bit on the loud side because you can turn the volume down if it's too loud. If it's not loud enough, then you can turn the volume up full blast and it's still not loud enough. So, I'm gonna, I get these trolls that say, oh, it's too loud, and other ones that say, oh, it's not loud enough, and, adjust it with your volume, okay? I don't want to hear about it. I'll just delete the comments. Okay, so moving on. If you see through the illusion, then you are the solution. If the people don't know their basic rights and freedoms, how can they know when or if their rights and freedoms are being infringed? Never forget the men who started this country were marijuana-growing, whiskey-drinking, tax-evading rebels who left their beds at night to shoot at the pigs. All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. Government is not reason, it is not eloquence, it is force. Like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow me on Steemit. Don't forget to like this video. On YouTube, don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so that you're notified when there's a new upload. And on Steemit, don't forget to vote and make your comments. This is the front page of my YouTube channel. The subscribe button's been clicked because it's not red. They're red if they're not clicked. The arrow's pointing at the bell, and the bell has not been clicked because it doesn't look like it's vibrating. When you click on the bell, a pop-up will come up and you can be notified of uploads. Okay, so under the Libra Code Article 13, military jurisdiction is two kinds. First, that which is conferred by statute, conferred and defined by statute. Second, that which is derived from the common law of war. Military offenses under statute law must be tried in the manner they are directed, but military offenses which do not come within the statute must be tried and punished under the common law of war. The character of the courts which exercise these jurisdictions depends on the local laws of each particular country. In the armies of the United States, the first is exercised by court-martial. That means the under the law of war, and while cases which do not come within the rules and articles of war or the jurisdiction conferred by statute on court-martial are tried by military commissions. So again, all you see out there is military commissioners. Okay, they're all military offenses. All of these statutes. Okay, there's no common law offenses. Martial law supersedes and replaces common law. Okay, and so. Again, this is where they have to pass literally millions of codes, rules, and regulations, and it's corruption, because if you fail to know about some obscure code, rule, or regulation, they'll sell you into slavery. These military commissioners sit there and play stupid, and these liars lay awake at night dreaming up these codes, and they deliberately make them confusing. And so they sell people into slavery. They're making money. It's all just nothing but a big racket. It's a big, huge amount of corruption, and that's what Trump is having to deal with. All statutes are in support of the martial law. All statutes apply to subjects only. There's two kinds of court proceedings. There's court-martials and military commissions, and the only Article 3 courts are set up by we, the people. Where controversies of such a character as to require the exercise of the judicial power defined by Article 3, the jurisdiction thereof can be conferred only on courts established in virtue of that article, and Congress is without power to vest that judicial power in any other judicial tribunal or, of course, in an executive officer or administrative or executive board, since they are incapable of receiving it. It is noted as significant that the Act constituting the court dispenses with trial by jury, a provision which is distinctly upheld in spite of the Seventh Amendment. With respect to the status of the court, the opinion concludes a duty to give decisions which are advisory only, and so without the force of judicial pronouncements may be laid on a legislative court, but not on a constitutional court established under Article 3. So there's no Article 3 courts. They're all legislative courts. They're all give advisory decisions, and it's all a big charade. But they'll sell you into slavery even though it's an advisory decision, because it's all part of a commercial agreement. Okay, they're assaulting you with one of their little contracts. So when the people rise up in rebellion and we start blowing their brains out, then that's what we say is, oh gee, I thought you wanted to do a commercial agreement. Blow the next guy's brains out. Oh gee, I'm so sorry, I thought he wanted to do a commercial agreement. Libra Code Article 13, because the grand jury is an institution separate from governments over whose functioning the courts do not preside, we think it clear that as a general matter, at least, no such supervisory judicial authority exists. So the grand jury is completely separate, okay? And so it's a very powerful thing that we can do is convene our own grand juries and our own common law juries and start bringing indictments against them, and they have no power over that. Rooted in long centuries of Anglo-American history, the grand jury is mentioned in the Bill of Rights, but not in the body of the Constitution. It has not been textually assigned, therefore, to any of the branches described in the first three articles. It is a constitutional fixture in its own. And this is U.S. versus Williams, 1992. This is, what's his name? He went and got suicided in Texas. What's his name? Not suicided, but he turned up dead. I'll think of his name. Scalia. Yeah, Scalia. This is Scalia that wrote this opinion. In fact, the whole theory of its function is that it belongs to no branch of the institutional government, serving as a kind of buffer or referee between government and the people. And so again, the most powerful thing that we can do is to convene our own grand jury and start bringing indictments against them. And there's nothing they can do about it. Recognizing this tradition of independence, we have said that the Fifth Amendment's constitutional guarantee presupposes an investigative body acting independently of either prosecuting attorney or judge. And that's U.S. versus Williams. Both these cases are U.S. versus Williams. That the decision was written by Scalia. Legislative courts are not judicial. Legislative courts are not Article 3 courts. Legislative courts give advisory decisions only, do not have the force of law. Executive, administrative, executive board, and legislative courts are incapable of receiving authority to be an Article 3 court. Only an Article 3 court has the force of law. If they don't have the force of law, it means absolutely nothing. It's a void judgment. There's a legislative court right there. Judge works for the state, prosecutor works for the state, police or witness works for the state. The vast majority of the disputes between the police initiate on behalf of their employer, are also adjudicated by their employer, where the plaintiff, the judge, the antagonist, the police, and the only witness, also the police, all represent the same party. And since no corpus delicti, mens rea, or ex reis can be produced, doesn't technically qualify to be heard according to its own laws. The state, therefore, is indistinguishable from a criminal cartel. Oh, look, a kangaroo court. We can't even begin to count the number of times judges, lawyers, and statesmen have said there isn't any common law anymore, it's been replaced by statutes. They would be more truthful if they said there isn't any common law anymore, it's been replaced by martial law. And that's taken from a book called The Non-Ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge A.H. Ellett of the Utah Supreme Court in the case Diet versus Turner. Martial law supersedes and replaces common law. And this is taken from the causes and necessities of taking up arms. Statutes have been passed extending courts of admiralty and vice-admiralty far beyond their ancient limits for depriving us of the accustomed and inestimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law and instead thereof to publish and order the use and exercise of the law martial, and for altering fundamentally the form of government established by charter. In other words, it's a military dictatorship, folks. We saw the misery to which such despotism would reduce us. It's a military dictatorship. It supersedes and replaces common law. That's why they have to pass millions of statutes, codes, rules, and regulations. There's no common law offenses against the United States, only acts which Congress has forbidden with penalties for disobedience of its command or crimes. That's why they have to pass millions of codes, rules, and regulations. You ever seen the Code of Federal Regulations, CFR? It's probably about 200 volumes. And then there's the United States Code. That's probably about 100 volumes. And so they go and pass these millions of codes, rules, and regulations. And if you don't know some obscure code, rule, or regulation, they'll sell you into slavery. And it's all business. And the bought and paid for whore masquerading as a judge in the advisory legislative court is a military commissioner, and he's sitting there playing stupid. Under Texas no act or omission is a crime unless made so by statute. The legislature may create an offense and then in the same enactment provide exceptions to its application. So the same thing is going on in every state. Okay? It's all military commissioners. It's all martial law, and these judges sit there, these military commissioners masquerading as judges, these bought and paid for whores selling their just us, sit there and play stupid. Oh, look at that, Arizona too. All common law offenses and affirmative defenses are abolished. No conduct or omission constitutes an offense or an affirmative defense unless it is an offense or an affirmative defense under this title or under another statute or ordinance. Okay, so in other words, if it's not written down, it's nothing. Okay, under common law is the unwritten law. Okay, common law basically says that you can do anything you want as long as you don't damage someone's person or their property. And so, I mean, that's pretty simple. It's very simple. And it's all decided by juries, and there's no military commissioners, and so this is all martial law. The more corrupt the state, the more numerous the laws. And this is Cornelius Tacitus, who is a Roman historian. Gee, the more things change, the more they stay the same. They pass literally millions of codes, rules, and regulations, and if you fail to know some obscure code, rule, or regulation, they sell you into slavery. That military commissioner is sitting there playing stupid. And his bar member buddy is, so they basically, and matter of fact, and many times they're bought and paid for by the bar member buddy. So this bar member buddy is selling you into slavery. He's making some money. Oh boy, we're going to make some money and sell this guy into slavery and ruin his life and his family and everything else. NSA takes care of the spying, CIA takes care of the drug trade, FBI takes care of the terror attacks and the false flag, and Homeland Security takes care of the rest. It's all martial law. CIA owns everyone with any significance in the major media. Are we surprised? I mean, when you can't trust a word that they say? We'll know our disinformation in this program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. And William Kersey, CIA director. So, are we surprised? You can't trust a word that they say? Deception is the state of mind and the mind of the state. These people are nothing but a bunch of scumbags. This is military dictatorship, folks. That's what happens when you have a military dictatorship. It's a time we put an end to this. Trump is trying to put an end to this. We need to help him. This is the Libre Code, article Instructions for the Government of the Armies of the United States in the Field, prepared by Francis Libre, promulgated as General Orders Number 100 by President Lincoln, 24th of April, 1863. And you can get it online. I got it online. Article 1 of the Libre Code, a place, district, or country occupied by an enemy stands in consequence of the occupation under the martial law of the invading or occupying army, whether any proclamation declaring martial law or any public warning to the inhabitants has been issued or not. Martial law is the immediate and direct effect and consequence of occupation or conquest. The presence of a hostile army proclaims its martial law. Martial law does not cease during a hostile occupation except by special proclamation ordered by the Commander-in-Chief or by special mention in the Treaty of Peace. And there's been no proclamations, and there's been no, and it's got to be special mention in a Treaty of Peace, and there's been no special mentions either. And that's Article 2 of the Libre Code. Article 3 of the Libre Code. Martial law in a hostile country consists in the suspension by the military authority of the criminal and civil law and of the domestic administration and government in the occupied place or territory, and in the substitution of military rule and force for the same, as well as in the dictation of general laws. Gee, that sounds like dictatorship. As far as military necessity requires the suspension, substitution, and dictation. The commander of the forces may proclaim the administration of all civil and penal law shall continue either wholly or in part, as in times of peace, unless otherwise ordered by the military authority. That's Article 3. Well, and this is taken from the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge A.H. Ellett of the Utah Supreme Court in the case Diet versus Turner, and he expands on it a little bit. Note, under the law martial, only the criminal jurisdiction of a military court is the recognized law, but as Article 3 says, the civil courts can continue wholly or in part as long as the civil jurisdiction does not violate the military orders laid down by the commander-in-chief or one of his commanders. By this means, a military venue, jurisdiction, and authority are imposed on the occupied populace under the disguise of the ordinary civil courts and officers of the occupied district or region, because the so-called civil authorities in an occupied district or region only act at the pleasure of a military authority. It should also be noted here that the several state legislatures, county boards of commissioners, and city councils are constantly legislating to please the edicts of the federal government, the occupying force, and that their legislation in this sense is not an exercise of state sovereignty, but instead a compliance with the edicts of the military force which occupies the several states and are consequently our edicts under martial law. So it's a dictatorship. Edicts are what happens in a dictatorship. So all statutes, codes, rules, regulations are edicts under martial law. A statute is an edict under martial law. Regulation is an edict under martial law. A code is an edict under martial law. A rule is an edict under martial law. A constitution, even all these constitutional amendments that they do, are all edicts under martial law. Oh, and this is juicy. All wanton violence committed against persons in the invaded country, all destruction of property not commanded by the authorized officer, all robbery, pillage, or sacking, even after taking a place by main force, all rape, wounding, maiming, or killing of such inhabitants, are prohibited under the penalty of death or such other severe punishment as may seem adequate for the gravity of the offense. A soldier, officer, or private in the act of committing such violence and disobeying a superior ordering him to abstain from it may be lawfully killed on the spot by such superior. That's Article 44 of the Liber Code. And so that's what they do. No evidence. This is where it's codified in Texas Code of Criminal Procedure. It says no evidence obtained by an officer or person in other person in violation of any provisions of the constitutional laws of the state of Texas or the constitutional laws of the United States of America shall be admitted in evidence against the accused on the trial of any criminal case. Well, gee, doesn't that sound wonderful? Well, get a load of paragraph B. It is an exception to the provisions of subsection A of this article that the evidence was obtained by a law enforcement officer acting in objective good faith reliance upon a warrant issued by a neutral magistrate based on probable cause. And that's Texas Code of Criminal Procedure, Article 38.23. And so they're basically saying that they're saying that as long as he's operating in good faith, he can go ahead and do whatever he wants to do. And murder you even, and get away with it. Why do you think you see these pigs murdering people every night on television? And this is federal. Okay, 18 U.S.C. 2707. Defense, a good faith reliance upon a court order or warrant, a grand jury subpoena, a legislative authorization, or a statutory authorization, including a request of a governmental entity under Section 2703F of this title, a request of an investigative or law enforcement officer under Section 2518.7 of this title, or a good faith determination that Section 2511.3 of this title permitted the conduct complained of, is a complete defense to any civil or criminal action brought under this chapter or any other law. Oh, how convenient! Copies of these documents can be found in my private group at Yahoo called Administrating Your Public Servants. For a complete set of YouTube videos with private information, shares a DVD with over 50 searchable law dictionaries and other books and forms, contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the military script, the fake money, the IOUs, the Federal Reserve notes, the PayPal gifts, the checks, the money orders. Send me an email for particulars. All statutes, codes, rules, and regulations, and constitutions are edicts under martial law. It's a full military dictatorship. There's no separation of powers. They want you to think there is, but there's really no separation of powers. Every constitutional amendment after 1861 is an edict under martial law. Military necessity is martial law. All Civil War states are under military occupation: Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas, Missouri, Tennessee, and Kentucky. And all the states in the territory conquered by the war with Mexico are under military occupation: Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Nevada. Dictation is a dictatorship. It's a military dictatorship. Law enforcement, why do you think they call them law enforcement? They don't call them peace officers, do they? They're enforcing the martial law. An offense is an offense against the martial law. When the southern states walked out of Congress in 1861, they ceased to have a quorum under executive authority. Lincoln ordered Congress to reconvene. When the Supreme Court ruled against something Lincoln did, he ordered troops to the Supreme Court. And even today, under Rule 45, Process and Mandates of the Rules of Procedure for the Supreme Court, it says, all process of this court issues in the name of the President of the United States. There's no separation of powers. When Obama, everybody seemed to think that the Obamacare was going to be unconstitutional, and Obama started coming out and railing on the courts, and guess what happened? It was all of a sudden constitutional. All statutes, state or federal, passed prior to 1861 are lawful de jure statutes. All statutes, state or federal, passed after 1861 are martial law statutes. Two national governments exist, one to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by Congress outside and independently of that instrument. In 1871, Congress set up a corporation to operate as the government of the District of Columbia, and that's the second national government. Okay, so you have the lawful de jure government that is in abeyance, which means dormancy, because Congress is operating under executive authority and cannot pass lawful de jure statutes, and they only operate as the government of the District of Columbia. And if you think that those codes, rules, and regulations apply to you, you're a slave. You're under martial law. It's an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, March 9, 1933, 48 Stat 1, Public Law 89-7919, declared by President Roosevelt and his new communist deal being bankrupt and insolvent. HJR 192, 73rd Congress in session June 5, 1933, joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause, dissolved the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of all United States governmental offices, officers, and departments, and is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only, and that's congressional record. And get a load of this, March 9th, 1933. Well, look at this. U.S. Senate Report number 93-49, dated November 19th, 1973. Since March 9th, 1933, the United States has been in a state of declared national emergency. Under the powers delegated by these statutes, the President may seize property, organize and control the means of production, seize commodities, assign military forces abroad, institute martial law, seize and control all transportation and communication, regulate. Sounds like a dictatorship, doesn't it? That's what it is, folks. Actually, it was there before then even. Regulate the operation of private enterprise, restrict travel, and in a plethora of particular ways, control the lives of all American citizens. The majority of the people of the United States have lived all their lives under emergency rule for 40 years. Freedoms and governmental procedures guaranteed by the Constitution have in varying degrees been abridged by laws brought into force by states of national emergency. Pentagon Inc., Google, YouTube, Facebook, Amazon masquerading as private companies. This court declared in the slaughterhouse cases that the 14th Amendment as well as the 13th and 15th were adopted to protect the Negroes in their freedom. Okay, so it was all the justification. That was the martial law, but now they just use it to enslave everybody. So now, because our ancestors were trying to enslave a group of people, now everybody's enslaved. Really, is what you think about it. It's because of the martial law. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were designed mainly for the protection of the newly emancipated Negroes. And now everybody's a slave. After the adoption of the 14th Amendment, a bill which became the first Civil Rights Act was introduced in the 39th Congress, the major purpose of which is to secure the recently freed Negroes all the civil rights secured to white men. None other than citizens of the United States were within the provisions of the Act. Now everybody's a slave. The dissenting opinion asserts that the 14th Amendment is part of the Constitution of the United States. While this same assertion has been made by the United States Supreme Court, that court has never held that the amendment was legally adopted. And I cannot believe that any court in full possession of its faculties could honestly hold that the amendment was properly approved and adopted. It's a martial law amendment. Everything done after 1861 was under martial law. All statutes, constitutions, codes, rules, regulations, amendments are for that unconstitutional corporation that was set up in 1871. They're for the District of Columbia and the territories. Martial law falls under the law of nations. This will work for any country on the planet because it falls under the law of nations. Find any national emergency, including a bankruptcy, and you'll have proof that your country, wherever you are on this planet, is operating under martial law. And it's all coming from the Roman cult, too. Martial law extends to property and to persons, whether they're subjects of the enemy or aliens to that government. So it extends to subjects or aliens, nobody else. Does not affect we the people. Why would anyone want to be a low-life scumbag U.S. citizen? If a military police officer is talking to you, you are a subject. You are the enemy. McCullough versus Maryland, 1819. All subjects over which the sovereign power of the state extends are objects of taxation, but those over which it does not extend are exempt from taxation. This proposition may also be pronounced as self-evident. The sovereignty of the state extends to everything which exists by its authority or its permission. It's obvious. This is Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2 of the U.S. Constitution. The Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the other property belonging to the United States. If you are property, okay, that's a subject, and you are a slave. This is a Canadian Ownership and Control Determination Act. This is effective in every country on the planet, if you think about it. Section 2 definitions in this act. Owned means subject to the regulations. If you're subject to the regulations, you are owned. You are property. You are a slave. There's two political jurisdictions. There's God's jurisdiction and there's Lucifer's jurisdiction. Under God is all living things, people, animals, plants, heaven, earth, universe, lawful and natural. And Lucifer's is all the fiction, the illusion. The term resident and citizen of the United States is distinguished from a citizen of one of the several states in that the former is a special class of citizen created by Congress. A U.S. citizen was created by Congress. The term citizen of the United States is analogous to the term subject in the common law. Civil rights under the 14th Amendment are for federal citizens, not state citizens. Federal citizens, as parents, have no right to the custody of their infant children, except subject to the paramount right of the state. Again, if they are stealing your children, then you have not defeated their presumptions. I get a lot of people that are contacting me these days about CPS. It is evident that they, U.S. citizens, have not the political rights that are vested in citizens of the states. They're not constituents of any community which is vested in any sovereign power of government. Their position partakes more of the character of subjects than of citizens. They are subject to the laws of the United States but have no voice in its management. If they are allowed to make laws, the validity of these laws is derived from the sanction of a government in which they are not represented. Mere citizenship they may have, but political rights of citizenship they cannot enjoy. Martial law affects chiefly the police and the collection of public revenue and taxes, whether imposed by the expelled government or by the invader. It refers mainly to the support and efficiency of the Army, its safety, and the safety of its operations. Now you know why they always want you to be safe. We want you to be safe. We're worried about your safety. Contract. Do you feel like you have no constitutional rights when it comes to income tax? It's because you don't. The Constitution does not apply where two parties have a contractual relationship. And that's true except under the Geneva Convention, because the protections found in the Geneva Convention, which is to do with martial law, those rights cannot be signed away. So all police are military police. You have the FBI military police, the city military police, the state military police, the Homeland Security military police, the county military police. All police are military police, and if they're talking to you, then you are a subject and you are the enemy. The real domestic terrorists, right there. There's the domestic terrorists murdered by police. How many people, it's way more than that now, that are murdered by the police? It's almost a routine occurrence. Oh, we talked it over, and after investigating it ourselves, we decided we're not guilty. Beware violent street gangs. A typical gang member is well organized, gang colors, gang identifier, heavily armed. Do not approach. Gang members are aggressive and notoriously violent. The tyrant, who in order to hold his power suppresses every superiority, does away with good men, forbids education and light, controls every movement of the citizens. Gee, that sounds like real ID, keeping them under perpetual servitude, that sounds like taxes, wants them to grow accustomed to baseness and cowardice, has his spies everywhere to listen to what is said in meetings, that sounds like the National Security Agency, spreads dissension and calumny among the citizens and impoverishes them, more taxes, is obliged to make war in order to keep his subjects occupied and impose upon them a permanent need of a chief. That's Obama. That's a textbook example of Obama. And this is Aristotle that said it, so this is nothing new, folks. Government officials wear two hats. They can represent the unconstitutional corporation or they can represent the lawful de jure government. Remember, it's good faith. You have to take away that good faith. That's the purpose of my procedure, is to take away their good faith. Because of our own ignorance, and ignorance is really a compound word. It's not a compound word, but the root word of ignorance is ignore. It's ignorance. We've given them evidence of their slave. They presume we're their slave until we defeat their presumption. Under the international law of warfare, all parties to a cause must appear by nom de guerre, because alien enemy cannot maintain an action during the war in his own name. A mixed war is one which is made on one side by public authority, neither by and on the other by mere private persons. Okay, so this everything is warfare. Everything is warfare. The United States acknowledge and protect in hostile countries occupied them religion, morality, strictly private property, the persons of the inhabitants, especially those of women, on the sacredness of domestic relations. Offenses to the contrary shall be rigorously punished. This rule does not interfere with the right of the victorious invader to tax the people or their property, to levy forced loans, to billet soldiers or appropriate property, especially houses, lands, boats, ships, or churches, for temporary and military uses. Article 37 of the Libra Code. Forced loans. The forced loans of 1862 and 1863 in the form of legal tender notes were vital forces in the struggle for national supremacy, and they formed a part of the public debt of the United States. That's the U.S. Supreme Court, Juilliard versus Greenman. Federal Reserve notes are military scrip. Federal Reserve notes are forced loans. They're forcing you, the enemy, to loan the government money. Governments, any sovereign, descend to the level of a mere private corporation and take on the characteristics of a mere private citizen where private corporate commercial paper and securities is concerned. For purposes of suit, such corporations or individuals are regarded as entities entirely separate from government. And that's Clearfield Trust Company versus United States. Federal Reserve notes are military script. All statutes are martial law statutes. All statutes apply to subjects only. The military police often say you think our laws don't apply to you. Well, the Libra Code says it all. Do they even teach you to read? The last thing they want to talk about is war crimes, and war crimes precipitate revolutions, and they want you to think you have constitutional rights. So I've got some exclusive content available on my website. I have 2 subscription levels, and I accept cryptocurrencies. The basic subscription level is $29.99 a year for the videos only, and the $49.99 a year for the videos plus unlimited consultations. Now, there's limits as to what I can do as far as consultations are concerned. I am not a liar. Well, I meant an attorney. Well, no, actually I meant a liar. But I can tell you what I would do under certain circumstances and where to find the forms. And so the only power that these New World Order Satanists have over us is through fraud and deception, and my agenda is to expose it for all our benefit, but I cannot fight all the battles. I need other people being on point. I need other people understanding what the real issues are and bringing up the right issues. And so if you want to make a donation, I should say if you want to buy a subscription just as a donation, it's a modest donation, there's no doubt about it, but a whole bunch of people chipping in a little bit adds up pretty fast. Anyways, and it's certainly appreciated, whatever you do. So I'm currently publishing a video a week. Actually, it should say a video a week. Some of the exclusive content is the Arlington Private Information Share, the Land Deed Training, Estoppel Certificates Training, the Foreclosure Estoppel Certificates Training, Corporate Denial Training, Toll Roads Notice and Demand Training, Invoice Training, Notice of Void Judgment Training, Revocation of Signature Training, Third-Party Witness Training, Federal Habeas Corpus Training, Revocation of Voter Registration, Criminal Complaint Training, and there's 2 or 3 videos on that, and there'll probably be more. Lawsuit Training, that's one that I'm working on. I haven't got up there yet. It's kind of complicated. It really is, but it isn't. It's just you got to get the rules out and follow the rules. Other training requests, there's also the Northeast Private Information Share videos. There's a bunch of those up there. And all forms, files, and other instructions are available for free on my 2 private groups at Yahoo Groups and Google Groups. All the exclusive content's available on my website, and you can buy a subscription there. All empires are built the same way. You get 50% of the poor to go to war and kill the other 50% of the poor, leaving the rich to chit-chat in the Senate, which gives the impression that there's real democracy. You absorb the land and riches of your enemies and repeat whenever you need cash or new resources. War is terrorism on a bigger budget. Democracy. Fake laws, false arrest, feel free. No contract, agreement, or regulation shall impair the right of any worker, whether voluntary or whatever he may be, to apply to the representatives of the protecting power in order to request the said power's intervention. And this is Article 52 of the Geneva Convention. That means all their rules and regulations are war crimes. And so I just actually filed a lawsuit, and I told them I'm not going to effect service, I'm not going to take your orders, I'm not doing anything, and you can mail a check to this address. And so we'll see what happens. Matter of fact, I'm going to send Trump a copy. And that is, then if you go to the edict under martial law, which is Title 5 United States Code, Section 552 AA 13, it says federal personnel means individuals entitled to receive immediate or deferred retirement benefits under any retirement program of the government of the United States, including survivor benefits. That means anybody with a Social Security number is federal personnel. If they compel a disclosure of a Social Security number, they're compelling you to work for the occupying power. Filing fees are a regulation, an edict under martial law. Court rules are a regulation. By turning on the emergency lights, they're terrorizing you. See, this is all war crimes. It's all about war crimes, and they cannot sign away, or you cannot sign away the rights guaranteed in the Geneva Convention. By turning on the emergency lights, they're terrorizing you, coercing information from you or from a third party is a war crime. When they coerce a date of birth from you, they're compelling you to work for the occupying power, a war crime. When they use their regulations to deny you justice, it's a war crime. And this is Article 27 of the Geneva Convention. Protected persons are entitled to all circumstances to protect their persons, their honor, their family rights, their religious convictions and practices and manners and customs, without prejudice to the provisions related to their state of health, age, sex. All protected persons shall be treated with the same consideration by the party to the conflict in whose power they are, without any adverse distinction based in particular on race, religion, or political opinion. Okay, so they cannot take reprisals for your political opinion. When they stop you because you don't have plates in your vehicle that are not state plates, then they're persecuting you for your political opinion. When they drag you into their kangaroo court, they're subjecting you to their satanic religious ceremony. And this is Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, Volume 2, under the definition of mort main. Says, yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity, for when they were driven out of all their former holes, they devised a new method of conveyance by which the lands were granted not to themselves directly, but to nominal fiefs to the use of the religious houses, thus distinguishing between the possession and the use, and receiving the actual profits, while the season of the land remained in the nominal fief. It was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the clergy, to be bound in conscience to account to assesticate use for the rents and emoluments of the estate. Gee, that sounds like taxes. And it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. So they're assaulting you with their Roman cult sesticate trust. My blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo.com. My YouTube profile is Sovereign Living. My Facebook community page, I deleted it due to censorship on the part of Facebook. My Facebook private group, Sovereignty International, is being deleted. You know, I haven't even been there in months. And Facebook is a has-been. I'm not even going there these days. I have friends that are on there, and they go and manage that stuff and knock themselves out for all I care. My Yahoo private group is administering your public servants. My Google private group is administering your public servants. Follow me on Twitter at Engineer Win. Follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International, and I've got a BitChute profile, but they won't let me upload the size of some of my larger videos, so I really don't have everything up there. Anyways, Article 8 of the Geneva Convention. Protected persons may in no circumstances renounce in part or in entirety their rights secured to them by the present convention, okay? This is powerful, okay? That's why you bring up the issue of the war crimes, because you cannot give up the rights protected under the Geneva Convention. And I'm planning on getting some people out of jail because of that. The party to the conflict in whose hands protected persons may be is responsible for the treatment accorded to them by its agents, irrespective of any individual responsibility which may be incurred. And that's Article 29. And so, again, they may be able to get their hired pig off the hook, but the corporation, the criminal corporation, is still responsible. And so that's why I told them, I'm not following any of your codes, rules, and regulations. I'm not taking your orders. I'm not affecting service. But you can mail a check to this address. Terrorism is a system of government that seeks to rule by intimidation. Can you spot the terrorists? There's a whole bunch of them right there. Americans killed in 2015 by cannabis, 0, Ebola, 1, snake bites, 2, ISIS, 3, playing football, 12, cow attack. Cow attack, can you believe it? 20 people got killed by cow attack. Bee sting, 100, police, 1,100, big pharma, 100,000 plus. Why is that a surprise? Small penis, lack confidence, bullied in school, then why not join the pigs? You'll get to use the phrase such as, I am the law, respect my authority, tell it to the judge. Knowledge of the law is not needed and actively discouraged. Training includes practice steps on how to manufacture consent to statutory rules, intimidation techniques, and legalese speaks. Below average intelligence and absolute obedience to authority is mandatory. So, when they engage in war crimes against you, so you should be getting a police report, you should get copies of any videos, you should get any notes, you should get any and everything that you can. It's amazing what kind of evidence they will give you against them. All of the statutory citations are provided from Catman's material. Catman is brilliant. He's done a whole bunch of research in Texas, and anybody in Texas, it's all done for you. But I mean, all you have to do in other states is find similar things. And anytime I really go seriously looking elsewhere, I find very similar stuff in other states. Catman's done a huge amount of research. I highly recommend that everyone in Texas should have his book. Okay, and it's Catman is catman1@gmail.com. That's his email address. Catman1, Katmanwon @gmail.com, and so you can contact him there. So you wanna build a case. Okay, that's what you have to do. And so you want all reports, all videos, all offense reports, all incident reports, all narratives, all call logs, all arrest reports. You got to list it all. If you don't list it down there, they're playing stupid. Okay, they're not going to give it to you. All photos, all criminal complaints, all bonds, oath of office of the officers involved. So check out my other videos, my Bankster Thieves playlist, my Roman cult playlist, my bankrupt corporate so-called governments, bar members 1 through 4, do-it-yourself, how not to volunteer for the selective service and draft, martial laws here, do-it-yourself, no income tax, do-it-yourself, free mail, do-it-yourself, kangaroo courts 1 through 15, the Canada Border Pigs playlist, and bar members and their Satanic Connections playlist. So the bought and paid for clerks masquerading as a judge is war crimes, okay? No sentence shall be pronounced by the competent courts of the occupying power except after a regular trial. Has to be a neutral. It's a fundamental right of a party to have a neutral and detached judge preside over judicial proceedings, okay? Well, none of them are neutral and detached. They're all bought and paid for, and so that's a war crime. It's a violation of Article 71. Warning, this is the standing army you're told not to tolerate. Order followers, the servants of evil. You assist an evil system most effectively by obeying its orders and decrees. An evil system never deserves such allegiance. Allegiance to it means partaking of the evil. A good person will resist an evil system with his or her whole soul. Well said, Mahatma Gandhi. And all you order followers out there, you ought to think about that. And all you order followers out there, check out Sheriff Richard Mack's Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. I think their website is cspoa.org, and you can learn about what your constitutional lawful authority as a peace officer. We need peace officers. We don't need law enforcement officers. Order followers are the ones that keep the system of slavery in place. Well said, Mark Passio. War is when your government tells you who the enemy is. Revolution is when you figure it out for yourself. Liberty, when liberty and freedom at stake, your silence isn't golden, it's yellow. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. These Roman cult Satanists are bending over backwards to make you think you have constitutional rights. It's extremely important to them because that people do not figure this out, because the last time they were doing war crimes that precipitated a revolution. If you challenge jurisdiction, the so-called judge is required to compel the prosecutor to prove jurisdiction or dismiss the case. If they do anything else, it's a denial of due process, a war crime. So that's what you need to start saying. And so we're doing war crimes here. In Texas, you say what you say is we're doing official oppression here, because that's a felony. They're cowards. They're real brave when there's 20 or 30 of them, but when it's just you and them, they're cowards. They sneak around and fabricate evidence that you're the enemy and a subject, and they will never confront you without lots of their buddies to back them up. You are the enemy, and the sooner you figure that out, the better. You're a subject and they're slave, and the sooner you figure that out, the better. Give me liberty or give me death was coined a phrase by Samuel Adams. No, actually, that was Patrick Henry. I got to change that. That was coined by Patrick Henry after witnessing a man flogged to death for refusing to take a license. They're assaulting people with their Roman cult sestike trust. In doing this, I shall have occasion incidentally to evince how true it is that states and governments were made for man, at the same time how true it is that his creatures and servants have first deceived, next vilified, and at last oppressed their master and maker. A state like a merchant makes a contract, a dishonest state like a dishonest merchant woefully refuses to discharge it. Government is not reason, it is not eloquence, it is force. Like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. The communists are responsible. They're persecuting you for your political beliefs. They're taking reprisals against you because you don't want to be their slave. They're pillaging your property. They're not respecting your religious beliefs. They're terrorizing you. They're threatening you. They're coercing information from you and from third parties like a DMV database. That's a third party. They're engaging in genocide against state citizens. Remember, it's warfare. You have to treat it like it's warfare because that is exactly what it is. Don't wait for them to attack you. Attack them first. Okay, the number one rule of warfare, the best defense is a good offense. Make an affidavit of corporate denial. Serve them with a notice and demand that's designed to take away their presumptions. If you do this effectively, you're going to put them in a very difficult position. If you do this well, you may even be able to get them fired or worse. And make an affidavit of criminal complaint. Serve it on the U.S. attorney. This is Texas Transportation Code. If the owner of a motor vehicle fails to timely pay the amount of the civil penalty imposed against the owner, an arrest warrant may not be issued, okay? So this is Class C misdemeanors. The imposition of the civil penalty may not be recorded on the owner's driving record. Okay, again, this is Class C misdemeanors. And they may not issue an arrest warrant, okay? An offense under this section is a Class C misdemeanor if the offense for which the actor's appearance is required is punished by fine only. Conviction of a Class C misdemeanor does not impose any legal disability or disadvantage. This is all Texas Penal Code. An individual judged guilty of a Class C misdemeanor shall be punished by fine only, not to exceed $500. And an offense under this section is a Class C misdemeanor if the offense for which the actor is punishable by fine only. We already talked about that. A county attorney will represent the state in all cases. Okay, and so that's the Texas Constitution. This is all stuff that Catman came up with, actually. And so, again, they never have a county attorney, and so that's simulating a legal process. A crime, get a load of this. A crime is a misdemeanor punishable by confinement in jail or a felony, okay? That means a Class C misdemeanor is not a crime, right? We just talked about what a Class C misdemeanor was. A defendant means a person accused of a crime. So if they're putting you, if it's a speeding ticket and they're putting you down as a defendant, then they prejudge the case, okay? And then a municipal court, including a municipal court of record, shall have exclusive original jurisdiction within the territorial limits of the municipality in all criminal cases. Okay, well, if it's not a crime, then it's not a criminal case. And they're assaulting you with that's prejudged. That's what they're done. A defendant is a crime equals jail or felony. A municipal court, and including a municipal court of record, shall have exclusive original jurisdiction in the municipality's territorial limits in all criminal cases. And it goes through criminal cases time and time again. In this section, an offense that is punishable by fine only is defined an offense that is punishable by fine and such sanctions, if any, as authorized by statute, not consisting of confinement in jail or imprisonment, okay? And so they cannot put you in jail or imprison you. I'm not paying your fine. Tough. You can't put me in jail. So there. All statutes, all codes, all regulations, all constitutions, all constitutional amendments, all rules, all court rules, all fees are edicts under martial law. The more corrupt the state, the more numerous the laws. And that's Tacitus Cornelius. They passed literally millions of codes, rules, and regulations, and if you fail to know some obscure code, rule, or regulation, they sell you into slavery. And the bought and paid for whore selling us just us is sitting there playing stupid. But probable cause. Get a load of this. So if they're stopping you, think about it now. Probable cause may be inferred from malice. Malice may be inferred from lack of probable cause. Lack of probable cause equals a malicious prosecution. And so any traffic offense is a malicious prosecution. And we're going to see how that works right now. The people shall be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and possessions for all unreasonable seizures or searches, and no warrant to search any place or to seize any person or thing shall issue without describing them as near as may be, without probable cause supported by oath or affirmation. There has to be a crime for probable cause. Probable cause can only exist in relation to criminal conduct. It's got to be a crime. If they're stopping you for a speeding, then what you say, in my opinion, what I would say is, officer, what's your probable cause to stop me? And he says, well, you were speeding. And I said, well, speeding is a Class C misdemeanor, which is not a crime, and probable cause requires a crime. So again, officer, I ask you, what's your probable cause for stopping me, or should I just be on my way? It follows that civil disputes cannot give rise to probable cause. The test for a police officer's sufficient basis for probable cause: did the officer have a sufficient basis to make a practical, common sense decision that a fair probability of crime existed? Once the officer's actions fail to satisfy this test, it may appear that no reasonable objective officer could have believed that probable cause existed to make an arrest. By definition, probable cause to arrest can only exist in relation to criminal conduct. Civil disputes cannot give rise to probable cause. A Class C misdemeanor is a civil dispute. Article 4 of the amendment prohibits law enforcement officers from arresting citizens without probable cause. Arrest made without probable cause violates the Fourth Amendment. Holding involuntary civil confinement is a massive curtailment of liberty, is tantamount to the infringement of being arrested, and can be made only upon probable cause. So, that's the end. Now, that's it right there, okay, folks? It's probable cause. If they're stopping you, they have to have probable cause. If it's a speeding traffic violation, then don't give them anything. Tell them, I want to know what your probable cause is to stop me. And if you have got some witnesses recording the thing, that'd be great. And so I want to know what your probable cause is to stop me. And if he says that it's a Class C misdemeanor, then Class C misdemeanor in Texas is not a crime, and you got to have a crime to stop me to have probable cause. And so therefore, I ask you again, what's your probable cause to stop me? Or should I just be on my way? And so again, it's a good idea to have someone with you to be recording this, because again, they have to have probable cause. Why did they stop you in the first place? If they're going to have to, if they bring an action, any action, if they search your car and find something, they're going to have to say why they stopped you, okay? And if you bring that up, I mean, it's going to cause major problems for them. I got to tell you, that's all they do. These pigs always assault people without probable cause. Anyways, I'm kind of going off here. Have a great day. I hope this helps. They gotta have probable cause. There has to be a crime for them to stop you, and there's Class C misdemeanors in Texas are not a crime, and I'll bet you it's the same in every other state. Have a great day.